Good morning, everybody. It is Sunday, June 29th, 2025. It is, let me check the time here, 6:40 a.m. in the morning. Doing this while I can, of course, with opportunity knocking and all that. You guys know what that's about, following me for 17 years. But also, I want to first say that I apologize for any room sounds. Those are notifications, or those are going to be notifications and Facebook Messengers, Instagram, you name it, that will pop up. So if you hear any booms, I do apologize for that. I also apologize if you hear a big boom. That would be for my bank, but seeing as though this is Sunday, I don't think that's going to happen. And it's the end of the month, so so we should be okay. But yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know about that at first, and let's get on to the topic of the video here, shall we? All right. So yesterday, the long-awaited short that was introduced, given a sneak peek at a recent convention about a month or two ago. The short, I should say, called Orphan Time from Helluva Boss, the newest one to kind of like bridge the gap between the end of season 2 and going into season 3. This short focused on Blitzo and Loona, kind of going out on a mission together to, take out an individual, because apparently the report that they were given about this guy, who's called Mr. Wigglers, is he basically is too freakishly kind and too, you know, too, just basically he's too much of a goody two show. Basically, the report they got on this guy is he's too much of a goody, if you know what I mean. Too much of a freakishly nice, charitable, kind-hearted individual. And basically, he also showed up the individual that wants him taken out. So, yeah, basically he showed him up in high school or something like that. So Blitzo decides for this mission that he's gonna want to do it with Loona, and basically, afterwards spend some father-daughter time with her and all that. And you can tell that you can kind of tell in a way this does take place sort of after season 2, but some, even I kind of looked at this too. Some can interpret it as taking place during season 2. Like, this is either during it, like towards the end of season 2, or it's a little immediately. It's kind of not immediately after, but maybe a few months after, timeline wise, of season 2 and everything. But yeah, basically, this short was about them going after this Mr. Wigglers guy because, again, the report on him was he was too freakishly kind and charitable, and just a very, I guess you could say, sweet, very, 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 very sweet tooth, give you cavities, kind of goody good. And he also showed up, the individual that wanted him, taken out. And, some, and you would think, you would think to yourself, well, why would, like what wrong did this guy do? It's like, what makes him have to be taken out in such a way, if you know what I mean? So basically, they go to this orphanage, and apparently, this guy has helped a lot of orphans find homes and everything, with their dads and their moms and all that throughout his run. He also is he's also a host of a children's show, kind of a children's preschool show or something like that. Think along the lines of, I would say, think along the lines of, well, back in my day, something like Romper Room. Or think along the lines of nowadays of something like, yeah, like Sesame Street in a sense, if not more sweeter, if you know what I mean. Or even Barney, the OG Barney show, if you know what I mean. But yeah, basically, You know, he's also that. He's also a host or something like that. He's kind of, well, basically he's kind of like a Mr. Rogers. We'll put it that way. He's a satire on a Mr. Rogers, but also kind of a satire on the Ned Flanders character because people made that comparison right off the bat when they saw him during the sneak peek, like, oh, he's Ned Flanders. So this is like a satire on both Rogers and Flanders. Anyway, what makes this interesting is because he's inside the orphanage building where they're at, where Loona and Blitzo go. Loona has to take on her human disguise to go and take this guy out. And what's interesting, what makes this a kind of a unique kind of short, very funny at times and very like heartfelt and everything, if you will, kind of adorable in the end, is the guy basically, when Luna in her human form comes up to him and says, "Hey, I'm here to take you out, you know, for good, literally end your life." The guy, you know, shockingly is accepting of it. Like, hey, if that's going to make you happy, I have no problems with it. Go ahead and do it. And you would think, well, wait a minute. Why is this guy so over abundantly, overabundantly happy at the fact that this girl, that just this goth girl, who's a hellhound, whose real form is a hellhound, anthropomorphic hellhound, why is he so over exuberant of her basically, you know, taking him out? You know, why is he excited about that? What? Because it'll make her happy? You know, I mean, obviously you would think that's suspicious. That's like suspect, suspicious clue number one, if you know what I mean. So, so anyway, to to get to the point, basically, he kind of starts sweet talking Luna. Basically, he starts kind of, I guess you could say, I would say, how do you put it? Not just sweet talking her, but getting, basically being, you know, so nice and everything to her that, you know, it makes you feel comfortable. Like, you know, she's like, here's somebody that she's supposed to take out that is, you know, accepting her for who she is, even though all he's seeing is her human goth, her human form, her human goth form, if you know what I mean. And he's just very willingly going to allow her because because in his mind, hey, if it makes you happy, go ahead and do it. He's willing to let her kill him, which, you know, again, it's like, that's strange. So basically, he's able to sweet talk her and also convince her and Blitzo by extension to allow him to say goodbye to everybody that he's, you know, helped out throughout his career, throughout his life. But as he's doing this, he's sweet. You know, he's kind of being very humbling, very sweet talking, and everything. And there's a couple of times that, you know, like this is one moment when Luna kind of like looks up, you know, kind of like does a little bit of an eyebrow raise, and then kind of smiles, like, you know, a natural smile, like, you know, what she's hearing and seeing is probably the most, you know, sweet. It's probably the best thing, or probably the nicest thing she's ever seen, you know, if you will. But this guy basically, like I said, he's just so, as people would say, very cavity sweetie, very much of a tooth cavity sweetie, if you know, to a sickening point, if you know what I mean. But he's able to basically convince Luna that it doesn't matter how you look, or, you know, what you look on the outside, or on all that, that you should be willing to, you know, accept who you truly are, accept your true self, and by doing so, others will accept you for who you are as well, or something like that. I gotta go back and watch. But yeah, he basically sweet talks her, coaxes her into essentially accepting who she really is. You know, because in his mind, if you just accept who you really are, others will accept you for that as well. And that's what brings us to the end. Because a lot of people, and these are the images you've been seeing throughout the video, this is basically from the ending. A lot of people felt that the short was okay. They just didn't like what Vizzy Pop did at the end. And it wasn't Visipop though that wrote the script. It was somebody else from Newgrounds. That's right. Can't think of their name right now, but it was somebody that used to do animations and stories for Newgrounds. And somebody basically said that it felt that by watching this, they felt something very similar to the Newgrounds method. You know, if you get, I guess, kind of get that understanding. Um, but basically, like I said, at the end, again, this is where people kind of got turned off a little bit because this guy is able to, this Mr. Wigglers is able to sweet talk and coax, Loona into basically letting her guard down. And what does she do? She changes back into a hellhound form. Yeah, she changes back into a hellhound form. After he kind of like, I guess, it tells her, hey, if you just, be yourself and, and everything, people will accept you, and I'll accept you no matter, I'll accept you for, who you are, no matter what you look like or and all that. And, basically, he's telling her, hey, just be the real you, and I can accept you for you. And what happens? Like I said, she lets her guard down. She changes back into a hellhound form. She looks up. She gets that sultry look a little bit that people have screenshotted, making it very similar to the sultry look that Charlie Morningstar made in the Amazon announcement of Hell Boss coming over there. And thus combining and officially making the Helluverse. Um, but basically, like I said, she changes into a hellhound form, looks up, kind of has that sultry look. Then her ears go down a little bit, her eyes go wide, and she's like, "Ta-da!" And the guy turns around, and you would think, the guy sees her and he's like, "Oh, you see, that wasn't so bad, you know, and you look kind of cute this way and all that." You think you'd be nice about it, natural, like, hey, he says he's willing to accept people for who they are, and they should accept themselves for who they really are, and they'll be accepted. But instead, what happens? The guy sees her, and you can see it in the screenshots. He freaks out. He freaks out to the point that Luna's gun goes off on him and shoots him in the leg twice, and everything. And he's crawling and everything. And then he throws sand. He reaches into his pocket and he throws sand right in her face because he's freaking out. You know, and in comes Blitzo saying, "Don't worry, Daddy's here to fix this." And literally takes a red brick, and goes bam a couple of times on top of Wiggler's head, and basically takes him out for good. And yeah, the end result is very bad, very bad. Pretty much is very messy, to the point that all the red liquid, we'll put it that way, the blood, if you will, splatters all over them, both him and Loona. But yeah, a lot of people weren't thrilled with that ending. And again, you know, the person that wrote it was known for doing this kind of stuff on the Newgrounds account with some of the stuff they put on Newgrounds. So, yeah, they weren't too thrilled with, they weren't too thrilled with this ending. And Visipop has caught some fire for it, but again, it's not her that wrote it. She approved the script and everything and what direction it would go in, but she didn't write the script. Somebody from Newgrounds did, and like I said, a lot of people just didn't like the ending. They didn't like the ending because of that. Because when they looked at the majority of it, they thought, hey, this is pretty cool, pretty nice, adorable, sweet. We're getting to see a more potentially sweeter side of Loona coming out. And what happens instead? They get an ending that pretty much flushes that all down the toilet. And they didn't like it. Now, what some people have to understand, though, is that these shorts are non-consequential. Well, I wouldn't say non-consequential, but they basically have no real bearing on the regular season. So people need to understand that they will have no real bearing on the third season. They might touch upon it and everything, but it has no real bearing. Because if it did have a real bearing in all that, then it wouldn't have ended the way it did. They wouldn't have had Wigglers freak out. They would have either had him show who he really is, maybe like he is a demon, like he's a agent of the, you know, of of the Lord of the underground, of the Lord of the underworld, and all that himself, and he just used this whole orphan thing to lure Blitzo and Loona into a trap. That could have been something. If this had any bearing on on the upcoming season, they could have done that. They could have had him be accepting of Luna's form and basically, basically have her work something out to where she makes it look like she took him out, and instead he's alive and all that. He can go off and back into his work, and then we kind of get a hint of, hey, maybe this might be something we get in the third season with Luna. They could have done that, but they didn't. They went the route that they did, and because they went that route, a lot of folks weren't happy about it. But again, what they have to understand is this is just, a non, basically it's non-canon. Again, it's non-canon to the overall upcoming season. Did Sally and Millie's story, the story short that they had, did it have any bearings on season two? Except for Millie calling Sally in the finale? No, it didn't. It didn't have no bearings. Did any of the other shorts have any bearings? No, they didn't. So this is not going to have any bearings. It's not going to have no real connection legitimately to season three whatsoever. It's a fun little short to fill in the gap between season two and three, and to kind of just, give you your feel of Helluva Boss and the Helluverse, and basically two personal favorites, Blitzo and Loona. And it also, if you want to look at it in a way, does do a bit of character development for them in the process. But truth is, this is just a short that will have no real, like I said, meaning or bearing in the upcoming season. So yeah, look, I can understand people being upset about it. I get it. Don't get me wrong. I feel like if they wanted to, they should have done something different. I do agree with that. But I also believe that Vizzy shouldn't be blamed for this. Yes, she approved the script, but she doesn't deserve the whole blame. The guy. If you want to blame anybody, it's the person that wrote the script who originated from Newgrounds. So again, don't don't blame Busy Pop for approving something that she knows, is for a story, for a short, that's not going to have any real consequences on the third season that follows. So anyway, though, yeah, I just wanted to get my thoughts on it and everything. What did you think? But let me ask you this: what did you think overall about it? Did you like it? Did you like the ending? And do you think people are taking this whole situation out of proportion, knowing or not realizing that it's not going to have any real bearing whatsoever in the third season? Let me know what your thoughts are, guys, down below in the comment section, as well as during the live chat during the premiere. Like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, share the video. Also, click on the links in the description, guys. It helps me out tremendously if you check out my content outside of YouTube, as well as check out the Teespring store. Guys, give me your thoughts. I'd love to hear overall how you felt about Orphan Time. Do you agree with the criticism about the ending and all that, or do you think people again are just blowing it out of proportion? Not realizing that it's not going to have any real bearing on season three. Let me know what your thoughts are. Until then, I am